you looking for a different level of truth about your challenges and struggles? Then be a part of the Yes and podcast, hosted by empowerment strategist and trauma specialist Jennifer Whitaker. Every Wednesday, we challenge conventional thinking on topics like trauma, healing, and so much more. Learn life lessons and great nuggets of wisdom from guests who've moved through their pain and suffering to discover a new purpose in life. Now, here's your host, Jennifer Whitaker.
Hi, everyone. This is Jennifer Whitaker, and our guest today is Manuj Aggarwal. Manuj is an entrepreneur, investor, and CTO of TetraNoodle, a software consulting company that helps startup founders with tech projects. Manuj started his career at the age of 15, working in a factory for 12 hours a day, 6 days a week, earning a cool $2 per day. Oh my goodness. That doesn't sound like much fun, Manuj.
Wow. It was interesting for sure.
Yeah, it sounds like it. While Manuj had no contacts or resources, he was determined to improve his life and realized education and the right training was the only way for him to achieve his goals. Manuj managed to acquire a modest education and went on to become a technical leader and CTO in multiple startups. Manuj is very passionate about education and training because without it, these achievements would not have been possible. While building his career, Manuj fought decades of anxiety, depression, and pessimism. Sound familiar, anyone? By indulging in meditation and mindfulness. He is deeply spiritual, which is not the same thing as religious, and focuses on accessing, training his subconscious mind to create the life of his dreams actively. Manuj, welcome to Yes And. It's an honor to have you here.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited.
Yeah, it's great to have you. And I love that you help people with mindset in the inner game, because I've heard people say that's half the battle. That's not half the battle. That is the battle.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. A lot of people have this, and I'm not excluding myself from that group. We grow up with this notion that you have all these dreams. You're gonna do well. You're gonna get a job, or you're gonna build a career or business. Once you have that, then you can be happy. Or once you retire, you can be happy. Once you get your kids after university, you'd be happy. And that day never comes. And whenever something is accomplished, you set up a new goal, and then that becomes the threshold for happiness. So yeah, if you just sort of flip it around, things become so much easier, where you work on your mindset, you find the ways to satisfy yourself mentally and spiritually, and then work towards your goals. That is a much better path than the other way around.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's amazing how people, and it's not culture specific, just humans in general have this tendency to dangle our own carrots in front of ourselves. It's not somebody else doing it. We do it to ourselves.
Yeah, which is okay. We are creative beings. Like, we most people like to create something, and we obviously have desires. So it's okay to reach out for something, but it's not okay to tie your happiness or your well-being to the outcome of that effort.
Yes. And so Manoj, how do you, separate the two? How do you separate the desire to create something and the desire to have something better from letting go of the outcome? How did you do that for yourself?
Yeah. So, let's do a little deep dive here. So, when I started noticing my own thought patterns, I was either just thinking about the past and just sort of beating myself down for things I'd said, done, or things I should have said, or things I should have said in a different way, and planning for the future. Okay, if this person says something like this to me next time, I'm going to use this dialogue on him. This is how I'm going to respond to him, or this is how I'm going to show him, blah, blah, blah,
And that's such a common thought process for people.
Exactly. Exactly. And then, or you always live in the future again, again, as I said, I'm going to try this strategy. This is going to work out. I'm going to make all this money, and life is going to be fine. Never did I sort of, focus on what is happening today, right now, in this moment. And so when I started meditating, these present moments started becoming more and more prominent, where then I started realizing why do we live in the past or the future, which is not the moment that we have access to. We're living in the present, so why not just stay in the present and enjoy what we are doing? And so, to come to your point, once you get into that state of mind, whatever process, like we are doing this interview right now, so we are both engaged in that. We are having fun. We are, this is something we like to do. So. This process itself becomes enjoyable. Now, what happens after this interview, whether the recording will be preserved, sometimes it crashes, and whether somebody will respond to this episode, whether, they will review it, that's the outcome which we right now do not care about, right? So, but if we keep thinking about, we want the best episode out there, and we won't be able to focus on what we are doing right now. And that's where this anxiety will come up, where, we are tying our well-being with the outcome, which is in the future. And frankly, we have very little control over that, right?
Right. And I think that's helpful to like pick apart, how we take the present moment and we project it into the future. And oh my gosh, so many of us do that.
Yeah, exactly. And
Yeah.
I think it's just the way that we have been raised, the whole educational system, our mindset is that we are preparing for a battle of our life when we, with kids, like, hey, you need to go to school, you need to become a doctor, engineer, whatever, so that you can make a lot of money and lead a good life. Never do we teach kids about morals, ethics, happiness, what are your core values. Things are changing a little bit, but not really. Like, the more I learn about what we are teaching to our kids, the more I feel that more drastic changes are needed.
And I'm curious, Manuj, how do you feel? Like, what are your thoughts about the metaphors, even the ones you were just using, like preparing for the battle of your life, or, and we see this everywhere we turn, like the war on this or the battle against that, or, like the race for the cure, like we hear it in every facet of life. It's like there's this competition and there's this battle and there's this fight.
Yeah.
Do you
Well,
find that helpful?
See, okay, so let me try to explain how I look at these things, right? So we are living in a very noisy world. So, there's so much going on, so much information being thrown at us. So, obviously, it's kind of hard for us to notice things and separate the ones that are good for us from the ones that are bad for us, right? And most of them are not very helpful. So now we need to figure out, okay, this is something that we are interested in. This is going to help us. And now, even to notice that, people who are pushing that concept or the content or the idea towards us, they need to sensationalize it so that it actually stands out. Otherwise, they may have the best intentions. It may be the right product or service for me, but if they don't say war on something and make it so dramatic, I won't even notice it. I won't even like say, okay, so this is about entrepreneurship. I know all about it. But if somebody says, be the best entrepreneur you can be, it's like, okay, that resonates a little bit. Let me check it out, right? So even that act of me checking it out needs, this is where the marketing geniuses come in. They try all these different messages, but at the end of the day, yeah, they are trying to sensationalize it and get our attention. So I don't know whether it's right thing to do or wrong thing to do. Just by the sheer amount of information that is coming at us, I think it is sort of like a necessity, in my opinion.
Yeah. So what does that do to the mindset? Like what you were just talking about, in trying to sensationalize things. And we have all these battles and these wars and these races and these competitions and everything's coming at us. Yeah. What does that do to our mindset? Because, that's what you help people with is, mindset.
So this is where, we so somebody's sending that information, they need to sensationalize it. Now, this is our responsibility. When we receive this email, we are able to break it down and not take it as face value. Yes, we recognize that, it got to us through sensational headlines and whatnot. And now it's our responsibility to figure out, does this resonate with us? Let's not just take it at face value, war on blah, 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 race for whatever. Let's dig a little bit deeper. Let's understand who the person is. Let's understand what their story has been, what is their journey. And then try to break it down into pieces where, okay, now this is something that I understand and it resonates with me. I want to participate in it. Or as we break it down, we can say, okay, um, it got to me somehow. I looked at the headline, I looked at the title, I clicked on it, or I became familiar with it. But after learning more about the program or the content or the product or the service or the person who sent it to me, their intentions, it may not be the right thing for me to do. So just looking at it objectively, not getting all caught up emotionally, will help you, just again, stay in the present. Just look at the things, evaluate it for yourself, and then make a decision either way, whether this is for you or not, and move on.
Yeah. Okay. And I would agree with that. Absolutely. And looking at something like that objectively requires some level of awareness.
Yeah.
So do you work with people who don't have that level of awareness? And if so, how do you help them start to become aware of, do you see the connection between how this advertisement coming at you or this news story and the sensationalism exacerbated your anxiety? Do you help them make that connection, and how do you approach that?
That's a very good question. Thanks a lot for asking. So self-awareness, yeah, I mean, absolutely, that is the first step in this whole journey. So when people talk about self-awareness, they say, oh yeah, I'm very self-aware. I like to eat Korean food. I like to wear this kind of clothes. But people mistake that as self-awareness. But self-awareness is more like very deep in terms of understanding what actually drives you, what motivates you, what are you actually running after. Because a lot of these things are linked to how we think subconsciously, what are the experiences we had in the childhood, what have been our major disappointments. So all through our life, we basically are running around to neutralize some disappointments we had in the past, or something of that nature. So self-awareness is more about learning about those type of deep issues that you have, learning about your core values, learning about your why do you do the things that you do. And so there are certain exercises I share with people, I walk them through, which helps uncover these sort of hidden layers that we all have. And then once people start to become more aware of all these internal feelings and emotions that are driving them, then we start the next step, from that point onward. Because as you said, like if you're not self-aware, everything else becomes really, really difficult to incorporate and to work with.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I love how you describe that process. And it is, self-awareness is much, much deeper. And yeah, it seems to me that you're spot on with how you explain that, because as you know, I'm a trauma specialist. So I do similar work. What I help people with is I help people figure out, like, where did this begin in the first place? Where did some of these deep core beliefs that you're helping them uncover, I help them learn, where did they come from in the first place? So my philosophy is, to hell with peeling back the layers of the onion. Let's go straight to the root.
Yeah.
And a lot of times we find that there's a whole patch of onions. It's not just
Exactly.
one.
Yeah. I do similar work as well. I try to summarize it, but yeah, I mean, a lot has to do with certain, we don't even realize, but quick example, in my case, I was, I think, 6 or 7 years old, and I lost 20 rupees once, once I was just going to the market. And 20 rupees at that point, I think, was about 10 cents, 20 cents or something like that. And, what transpired after that was a huge deal, because I lost that much money. It was a big amount for me. And that one little experience, it controlled, or it sort of affected how I used to think about money. for for a duration of my life. And I didn't realize it until I was like 35, 36. It's like, why do I always think that, this is what's going to happen? I'm going to lose money or lose all whatever I'm caring for. And it was tied to that little experience. And so, to your point, it's like all these little things, they have a root cause somewhere in your past. And small little things we don't realize which we used to think are insignificant, they may actually be so significant that they may actually be controlling your life.
Yes, absolutely. And I've discovered similar things in my life, how little events that the adults in my life and the adults around me would have found humorous at the time were so overwhelmingly humiliating and sent me into such a state of shame in the moment that I've carried that with me my whole life. And, like you, I was in my, late 30s and into my 40s. I'm into my late 40s now, trying to just uncover how some of these little, like you said, seemingly innocuous events really do carry us. We carry it with us throughout our whole life, and we modify our behavior.
Exactly.
And so how does spirituality and meditation and mindfulness help with some of these issues? Because I know that if somebody is prone to anxiety, sometimes meditation and mindfulness can exacerbate and make worse the anxiety. So how do you work with that, to bring it down? So because I do think, depending on the person, there is a right way and a wrong way, for each person to approach mindfulness.
So, obviously, I haven't experienced any negative effects with anyone for meditation. Just let's quickly come back to anxiety. So, yeah, I mean, a lot of people have anxiety, and I had anxiety too. But what I noticed was, again, most of the anxiety is about the uncertainty about what's going to happen in the future, right? So this is where spirituality helped me quite a bit, because being a student of science and being involved in technology, I like to understand things a little bit deeper. And so, when I said earlier, I'm not religious, because most of the religions, they teach the same thing, love yourself, love your neighbor, love everyone. And sort of that's the path to the higher power, whatever you want to call it, God, universe, whatever. So I didn't really quite understand it on face value, and the practices that most modern religions they follow, it didn't really sit well with me. So with my understanding of science, universe, spirituality, it sort of started coming together that whatever we are anxious about, it's futile, because we can only control what we are doing today, what actions we are taking today, and objectively make those decisions to steer us towards that final goal. And so if we just leave out that outcome part and not be anxious about the outcome, and just stay with the process, that anxiety level starts to go down. I mean, I've seen that once you get it, there's nothing to be anxious about, right? Like, so that's one thing that I try to do to lower that anxiety level. And now adding fuel to the fire by meditating and being mindfulness, now you're staying more and more in the present, and not focusing too much about the past or the future. And so once you have these feelings, once you are grateful for being in the present, and all the things that you realize that you have at your disposal already, then in my experience, things really work out universally, like in terms of how people think, how people behave, what kind of decisions they make. Now, granted that you are working with people with trauma, and I don't claim to be qualified to handle that type of situation. My focus is helping people who are in entrepreneurship and startup world get to the right state of mind, so that a lot of people, they struggle with building a business, but they don't work on themselves first. And that's where I want to give them these tools, so that they can work on themselves first and then build the business around their life.
Yeah, absolutely. I asked that question because early when I started meditating, I had this experience, and I've talked to several others, and I've worked with people who've had the experience of, they try to meditate and their mind goes into this chatter of, well, am I meditating? I don't know. Am I in the present moment? What am I supposed to be thinking about? And so the next thing you know is this chatter is going off. And then you start to get anxious because you don't know if you're meditating. You don't know how to meditate. You don't know what you're supposed to do. And then you come out of the meditation. And if it's a group meditation, you might hear somebody else tell a story about, oh yeah, I turned into this butterfly and I just saw myself transform through this beautiful process of metamorphosis. And you're like, well, shit, that didn't happen to me. Did I do it wrong? And so this worry comes in. So, yeah. And I don't know if you do this or not with yourself or with people. I start to guide people to, I call it ground, which is grounding and meditation is notice all your contact points. Like notice if you're sitting in a chair, notice your feet on the floor, notice the chair under your butt, notice the chair against your back, notice your, the armrest under your arms, how do all those contact points feel? And if you can get the monkey mind or that narrator, that chatter that is constantly going to focus on, oh yeah, I can feel my feet on the floor. If that's what you're hearing, then you've got your mind, that chatter in the present moment with you.
Yeah. So yeah, that's a good point. I use something similar, but here's my process, the way that I follow it.
Mm-hmm.
One is like, I always ask people to focus on their breath because that is a universal thing.
Yeah. Breath is another one, and sound.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to come to that. And then have a neutral sound in the background. So I meditate in my computer room. So there's a humming sound of the computer fan. So I just focus my attention to that. But to your point, like, I used to feel the same way, like, am I meditating? What the heck is going on, right? And then once I started like coming to this concept of acceptance, self-love, it's like, okay, whether it's right or wrong, let's just do it. And a lot of people have this anxiety. I cannot sit still for 10 minutes or 15 minutes. So I tell them, okay, just start with 1 minute. Just don't set a too high standard for yourself. Just take three deep breaths and start with 1 minute. So that's the process I follow with myself and with others as well. Like, I do not get anxious. It's like I'm there to receive whatever is coming. I know the method, meaning, I want to focus on my breath and I want to listen to something neutral. And out of those 15 minutes, maybe 12 minutes will be my monkey mind, like going all over the place. But at least for those 3 minutes, I will get a little bit of a glimpse of, what it is like to be in a meditative state, right? So now my mind is getting trained or used to this feeling. And the next day it could be 3 minutes, 15 seconds. Next day it could be 3 minutes, 30 seconds. So and in some days, like, I even sit down for, okay, I'm going to do it for 15 minutes, but sometimes I'm done in 10 minutes because I'm not feeling it. And that's okay, because I say, okay, I'm not going to push it. Let's just come back tomorrow and see what happens. And that way, slowly make a little bit of progress every day, just like a baby, right? It's not going to be perfect, but once you keep doing it over and over again, like you get there.
Yeah. And I love that you brought that up about, because I have that experience too, where I'll sit down, I'll set my timer, set the timer for 15 minutes or 20 minutes, and, 10 minutes into it, I'm done.
Yeah.
And there is like a mind game that we play with ourselves, or I think as you refer to it as the inner game that we play with ourselves, because part of me wants to believe that I'm a failure. And another part of me, that part, there is a part that does want to berate me, and it's like, oh, you failed, you're not good enough. You said you were going to do this for 15 and you were only there for 10. Or so how do you address that inner game that happens?
Yeah. So once again, right, like, I will say it's all the values that have been instilled on us by others, adults, education system, society, that you have to have certain certain level of how can I say it, like, success, or certain thresholds you have to meet. Now these thresholds are arbitrary, right? Like, there's no they say, yeah, 15 to 20 minutes is a good time, but nobody said if you do it only for 10 minutes is bad, right? So the threshold is something that we have set. Now, if the idea is not to be too anal about the threshold of 15 minutes. The idea is to get into the flow as much as possible, irrespective of what the outcome is. And if you're happy that you devoted 10 minutes rather than 15 minutes, then there is no conflict. There is nothing to berate yourself. And then again, you put self-acceptance and self-love on top of that. It's like nobody's perfect, So if I try to be perfect, and in the process, I'm going to be unhappy, or I'm going to be talking down to myself, that is actually harmful, more harmful than me taking 5 minutes off my schedule and just saying that's enough for today.
Yeah.
So it's like that again. You just think about changing your thinking, the way you talk to yourself, and just saying, I'm trying to do my best. So this is what I got for you today, and we'll try tomorrow.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I love that. So how does this mindset and this inner game and all of this stuff that we're talking about, even this inner conflict that we have, how does the work that you do and that you're talking about, how does that translate to entrepreneurs?
Yeah. So, entrepreneurship is tough. Everybody thinks that, hey, I'm going to launch an app, I'm going to launch a social media network, I'm going to become Elon Musk or Zuckerberg. But it's really, the media does not do justice in exposing the behind the scenes reality of entrepreneurship. It's like you're always tense about where the revenue is going to come from, where the quarter is going to finish, how you're going to pay all your bills, because you are on your own, right? Like nobody's going to give you a paycheck after 2 weeks. So once you get into that sort of roller coaster ride, if you're not objectively looking at things, again, this is very much related to devoting 15 minutes versus 10 minutes, right? So if you are so driven that okay, I'm going to make it happen no matter what, you start to make decisions from that mindset, that I'm going to make it happen no matter what, rather than saying, okay, I'm in this for the long term, and this is the situation I'm dealing with. Let's say an employee left, or a deal got canceled, or something wrong is happening with your website, whatever it is. So rather than getting emotionally involved, you start to pull yourself out of the situation and look at it objectively and say, okay, this is the situation we are dealing with. What is the effect? Why did it happen? What can we do right now to fix it? Rather than saying, hey, oh my goodness, like this is bad, really bad. Let's drop everything. Let's go and fight this fire here. And then the very next moment, there's something else going wrong over there. And now, you get into this how can I say, this mess. It's so difficult to get out of sometimes if you're not careful, if you're not thinking about these things and looking at these things objectively.
Yeah. And I've noticed that entrepreneurs tend to get overwhelmed rather easily because they are on their own.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's easy to get overwhelmed and avoid little tasks like, oh, that's not a big deal. I'm just going to not do anything about it. And, it's like, ignore it, it'll go away. And it doesn't go away. And then things build up and things build up. And sometimes entrepreneurs get into that quagmire of not knowing who they can reach out to.
And that's, exactly. So what's happening again is, our mind is, it has finite capacity, right? Like the conscious mind has finite capacity. So the more of this mess we take on, like, even if the task is not complete, I think most people will agree it stays in the back of your mind, right? It actually just bugs you every now and then. Hey, I need to do that. Oh, I'll do it later, but let me focus on this. So this is creating all this mess in the limited capacity that you have. But if you start to meditate, look at things differently, start to journal. So this is some other tactical things that I coach people with, like using journaling and using your calendaring tool effectively, using virtual assistants and whatnot. The whole idea is you try to empty as much as your mind as much as possible, and keep the most important things in your mind, right? And that way, these things that bug you in the back of your mind, okay, at least I have captured them in a system, or I have delegated to a virtual assistant, or I have done something with it so that I don't need to keep repeating it in my mind. It's somewhere in a paper, some record, or somebody is taking care of it for me. So the whole idea becomes now, you watch your time very, very closely. You spend it on constructive activities, and you focus on emptying out your mind rather than filling it up with more and more and more mess, right?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, fantastic. Um, what are some of the effects? Because, we're talking a lot about the process and the how-tos. So what are some of the effects that you see, or some of the successes that you've seen, with your clients?
The effects is loss of that anxiety, loss of that, and sort of enjoyment, joy. I see a higher level of joy in my life and other people I work with, and they start to genuinely enjoy the process. And even if setbacks come, it's like, and this is another thing which I teach, because I have seen that in my personal life.
Mm-hmm.
Earlier, challenges and obstacles used to be somewhat of a disappointment, like, oh, here comes another challenge, we have to deal with this now. But then when I started noticing it, every challenge is actually it actually leads to some growth, some new lesson you learn, some new way of doing things, some new conversation you had. So that's a path of growth. So now again, you start to incorporate that into your thinking. Now your challenge becomes something that you anticipate, and then you cherish that, because you don't associate that with the hard work you need to put in. You associate it with the anticipated growth that will come out of this challenge. So now all these things, as you're incorporating, you can see, the life becomes more of a play rather than an intimidating event where we have to constantly fight fires. So, that's the sort of the state of flow that you attain.
Okay. Yeah. Fantastic. And all of those sound like side effects that we want,
Yeah.
not the small print side effects.
And then the bigger side effects is that, this is where we start to get into things like law of attraction and all that. But but if you are in a good state of mind, if you're in a flow, then you can make the right decisions, you can execute well. And when that happens, things automatically work out much easier, much better, and things start to show up like coincidences. Okay, you run into people who are willing to help you, like, whereas earlier when you were all sort of anxious about the results, you are reaching out to people, you are doing the hard selling and everything. But then when you are in a calm state of mind, people are reaching out to you. So it's, things, you'll start to notice things become so much easier, and the outcomes are much, much better.
Yeah. And Manuj, I would imagine that there are some of my listeners who might not know what the law of attraction is. Since you mentioned that, do you mind giving us a little bit more of an explanation of what the law of attraction is and how it works?
Sure. I mean, in layman terms, it's basically, you can create your own reality through the power of your mind, right? So the way that it works is, to go a little bit deeper, your thoughts, the thoughts that you think over and over again, the example that I gave earlier, from any incident that happened in your childhood, it subconsciously lives in your mind. And when you think it over and over and over again, the thought goes from your conscious mind to your subconscious mind. Now it becomes a belief. Now you believe in it. Whether it's true or false, you believe in it. All this belief system actually starts to shape your life. So if you believe making money is hard, it's going to be a struggle to make money. If you believe making money is easy, things will be more easier for you in terms of financial success. So if you now reverse the process and you say, okay, this is how things work. So now what can I do to change this whole process? Now all you need to do is change your thoughts. So rather than thinking negative thought, this is not going to work, I'm never going to be happy, I'm never going to find anybody, my business is not going to work, which is the typical thought pattern most of us have. You just start to think the opposite. It's like, oh, this is a wonderful day. My business is working. I'm making progress. And that progress does not have to be like, going from zero to $1 million in one day. It could be, I wrote one page of my business plan. Again, baby steps, right? Like anything that moves you forward, it's worth acknowledging, worth celebrating, and yeah, and getting more positive energy out of that. And so you do that over and over again, and it starts to compound. And one day there's a hockey stick growth that came out of nowhere.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And I know when it comes to law of attraction, just with mindset, um, the language with which we word things, and even the language of the thoughts in our head, because like one of the things you said was, if we believe that making money is hard, it will be. And if we believe that making money is easy, it will be. Obviously paraphrasing, but the way you worded that, you said very specifically, making money is hard, making money is easy. Can you talk a little bit about, and it doesn't matter, even if you think those words or if you say them, it matters the language with which you think them or say them. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So in my case, for example, I'll just take my case and try to explain it, right? So I used to think that there's only a limited amount of money to go around in this world, and I need to do as whatever I need to do to capture as much as possible. So it's like a zero sum game. So
Mm-hmm.
whatever money I take from you, it'll come out of society into my account, and somebody else will need to struggle for that money. And
Mm-hmm.
so with that belief, I was always going around in circles, like, okay, I want to have more so that I can have enough for the future. But then slowly, when I started doing more work, I found that that's the wrong thinking. There's enough to go around for everyone,
Mm-hmm.
plus there is more. So there is abundance everywhere, basically. So there is no hurry. There is no there's no like a cutthroat competition to earn as much as possible. I mean, obviously there may be out there in the world, but really you don't have to subscribe to that notion, right? And so that with that, this belief that there's limited amount of wealth to go around, it was replaced with the world is abundant. So I can just focus on what I do best, try to enjoy my process, and then if I do a good job, money will start to flow in, right? Money, fame, whatever you want out of life, it starts to flow in. So once again, these are the ways that you can start to understand your psychology, your belief system, and if those beliefs are not aligned with your long-term goals, it's kind of hard to say to yourself, okay, get rid of that belief. So because the more we think about it, the more we start thinking about it, and then the cycle goes on, and then that belief becomes stronger and stronger. So rather than trying to delete it, try to neutralize it, meaning try to replace that belief with a newer
Mm-hmm.
belief that you know
Okay.
yeah, I mean, there's enough to go around and then some. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Okay. Okay. And I've also heard the argument that that it's almost blaming somebody. Like you talk to somebody who might be living in, below the poverty level and really, really financially struggling, maybe working 2 or 3, minimum wage jobs and barely making ends meet. Um, how do you respond to that person, whenever they're really out there struggling in the world and they're calling BS on this? And I've been in both positions in life. And I'm always curious to know how other people, respond to this, because it's a tough question when somebody's really truly like in the struggle and really in it.
Sure. Yeah, another great question. Thank you so much for asking that. So there are
Mm-hmm.
two parts to this, right? One
Mm-hmm.
is, again, this will be a little bit, it may sound a little bit strange, and it's a little bit deeper. So
Mm-hmm.
let's hope, like, it's not something that something will trigger negative feelings. But
Mm-hmm.
um, the universe has both good and bad, right? So
Mm-hmm.
we cannot say, okay, let's extract the bad out of here and throw it out of this universe. It has to balance out both good and bad. Now,
Mm-hmm.
as we come onto this planet, um, our, our 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 objective is to experience life and grow. Now, again, whether you believe in reincarnation or how things work, but uh, the point is, once you come to this planet, this life is almost like a movie. Now, when you go to movies, you can watch a comedy movie, you can watch a war movie, you can watch a tragedy movie, and
Mm-hmm.
there are various genres of movies. But we never say, people who go to comedy movies, they are happier. People who go to tragic movies, they just want to enjoy something different today, right?
Mm-hmm.
um, I like comedy movies, but I will watch, a horror movie once in a while. I will watch
Mm-hmm.
a murder mystery once in a
Right.
while. That doesn't mean that, either movie is bad or I'm bad or
Mm-hmm.
something's wrong with me. So similarly, a person who is going through tough time, maybe that's what they want in life as an experience. Now, it may sound harsh, but that is the reality. Like, we need to take responsibility for our experiences. The
Mm-hmm.
second part of this is, a lot of people think law of attraction or all this meditation spirituality is more to do with mind. Yes, it does have to do with mind, but if you do not accompany your thoughts, your changing patterns and thoughts with action, nothing's going to happen. So if you keep thinking positive and you keep thinking, oh, I'm gonna make I'm going to be this successful, I'm going to make this much money, nothing's going to happen unless you say, okay, I'm going to make this much money. This is my plan. How much money do I need to make? How much time do I have? Now let's break it down. Let's plan it out. Let's
Mm-hmm.
take the steps and take baby steps. It doesn't have to be like, huge projects, but let's take those little steps. Let's talk to people who can help us. And then things start to change,
Mm-hmm.
right? So,
Yeah.
so one aspect is, we should not look at the experiences that we have labeled
Mm-hmm.
as bad experiences. It's just the experience that somebody wants
Mm-hmm.
subconsciously, and the way to change that is, yeah, they need to figure out the new experience they want and take action towards that.
Yeah. And in the struggle, whatever people are struggling with, whether it's financial struggles, health struggles, mental, emotional struggles, whatever it is, there's a lesson buried in there.
Yeah,
And it's something to be explored. I mean, it's something that it's life's way of backing us into a corner and forcing us to look within.
yeah,
And the
exactly.
more we fight and resist looking within and finding what's the lesson that I need to learn out of this, struggle that I'm in, um, the more we resist it, the worse our situation becomes.
Exactly. So yeah, we
Yeah.
try to push everything outwards, right?
Yeah.
Blaming the other person, blaming the society, blaming the government. But
Mhm.
if we don't look within, uh, it's kind of, we are always reacting. But if we start to understand, okay, this is a external stimuli that is coming towards me, and I'm the one paying attention to it. I'm the one interpreting it, and then uh, sort of um, putting that feeling inside my heart and my brain,
Mhm.
and then we can choose to pay attention to something else, or invoke a different feeling, or have a different experience through the same stimuli.
Exactly. And there's an author that she's a favorite author of mine. I don't know, maybe you've heard of her. She's a Hay House author. Her name's Caroline Mace, and
I,
she's written several books. I think her most famous book is called Anatomy of the Spirit. And she's also written a book called Soul Contracts, and she does a lot of work around archetypes. And her archetypal work is what I look into. And whenever she's talking about our soul, and our archetypes and the struggles that we have in life, I love how she puts this, because she separates the physical body from the soul. The soul is more eternal. It's the lessons of the soul are different than the lessons of the body. And she
definitely.
talks about some of the struggles that we go through. She says it's intimate to the soul, impersonal to the body. And she repeats that 2 or 3 times, intimate to the soul and impersonal to the body. So impersonal to this human incarnation, impersonal to this human existence, but very intimate to what our soul needs to learn. So a lot of the struggles that we go through really do help us grow at that deeper soul level, and so much of what we're talking about, it all circles back to that very basic step of self-awareness.
Exactly. And that's a very good point. Thanks for bringing it up. Like, that
Uh-huh.
experience that you're living in poverty, it could be actually the path to the growth that you're looking for. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I talk about my life again. Yes, I started working in a factory, but I learned a lot of things there. Like, if now I think about it, if I didn't do that, my life would have been totally different, because I wouldn't be working as hard. Probably I won't know how works. All those
Mm-hmm.
things were sort of designed, or not designed, but they were there for a reason, and they lead up to the next step. And yeah, in the moment it may not be as much fun living through it, but if you just think, we went through school bitching about learning mathematics, or the
Mm-hmm.
topics or the subjects which we were not really keen about, but still we had to go through it to get to the next stage in our lives.
Mm-hmm. Yes, exactly. And there's a lot of value in some of that stuff that we bitched about that we had to
Exactly.
learn.
Yeah, exactly.
A lot of value in it. Yeah. So, Manuj, I understand that if I understand it correctly, you're getting ready to launch the Purposeful Tech Entrepreneur.
Yeah, that's right.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so my background is software and IT, and I work with a lot of startup founders and entrepreneurs. So what I'm trying to do is put together this coaching program. It's a 6 month coaching program, which starts with the mindset, with a very strong mindset, getting familiar, getting ready mentally for the challenges that lie ahead, and then moves into the actual strategies and the tactics of how to build a tech company. So it starts
Mm-hmm.
from the mindset and then goes all the way to a place where somebody can be confident about bringing a new product or service to the market,
Mm-hmm.
and grow it from there. So we call it the Purposeful Tech Entrepreneur, and
Mm-hmm.
it's a 6 month program. It's in pre-launch phase right now. So the good thing is, like, people who sign up for the first pre-launch phase, I'll be teaching it live,
Mm-hmm.
and after that, probably it's not going to be live. So yeah, this is a good time to get in if you want.
Oh, okay. So if somebody's interested in getting in, how would they go about that?
So yeah, you can go to innergamepurpose.com and sign up. And
Okay.
if you're interested in learning a little bit more about, what what the program is all about, mindset is a big piece of it. You can subscribe to a free video series. It's like a introduction to what is in the coaching program. You
Mm-hmm.
can get that at innerget.com. So it's INNERGET.com. But if
Okay.
after going through this interview, or you generally know what I stand for, if you want to sign up right now, then it's innergamepurpose.com.
Okay. So innerget.com is the free
Yeah,
videos.
yeah,
And then innergamepurpose.com is the pre-launch for your Purposeful Tech Entrepreneur.
exactly.
Okay, fantastic. Yeah, I might go check those out. It sounds interesting to me. And I got to confess, I dated a guy who was in tech years ago, and I swore I'd never do it again with no mindfulness whatsoever.
So okay,
It's not
I hope.
something. It's not something you see in the tech world very much. As somebody who's actually mindful, so I love that you're bringing some mindfulness and some life purpose into the tech world, because stereotypically that's not what we find there.
Well, actually, well, okay. First of all, I hope I am able to change your mind, and not sort of, and help the tech entrepreneur community to get more dates and everything. But yeah, I mean, I think things are changing. Like, I hear companies like Google, they have meditation spaces, and they
Mhm,
bring in people and talk about these kind of concepts with
mhm,
their employees. And a lot of companies are actually changing the way that they think in these terms. But it's the thing is, like, it has to be done at an individual level. The motivation has to come from within, and there are
mhm,
tremendous benefits. So if people start to recognize it, if we talk about it, and it's all about, again, it's all about spreading awareness and telling people, hey, this is something useful for you. It's not like some new age mumbo jumbo. It's not like you need to renounce and go to a monastery, become a monk. You can still live, an entrepreneurial a life which is rooted in capitalism, but
mhm.
you can enjoy life in a better way and make more progress. If you do it that way, you definitely will have more progress than if you do the other way around.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And so what's your response to the person who wants to sign up because they're trying to keep up with their friend who signed up because they genuinely want to? Because we have a lot of that too. Like, oh, you're doing it, I got to do it too.
I will say if you need to evaluate that feeling. If you only doing it just not to get left behind your friend, I will not recommend that. But if you genuinely feel that, hey, this friend, um, he or she has similar values as me, so if they signed up and if I sign up, it will be beneficial. If you get that kind of feeling, or you're motivated to join, yeah, you're most welcome. But don't join for the wrong reasons. Don't join um, you know by through the fear of missing out, or don't join just because you want to be part of a club with your friend, whatever. Join for the right reason.
Yes. So if you're out there listening or watching this today, it's all about self-awareness, folks. Look at your motivation, look at why you want to sign up, look at why you want to have a mindfulness practice or become a mindful entrepreneur. So yeah, it all goes to self-evaluation, self-mindfulness. Who was it? Socrates? Was it Socrates that said the unexamined life isn't worth living?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And there is some truth to that. If you're always comparing yourself to other people, but not examining your own life, what's the use? Why are you here?
But that's how 99% of the people live, and they leave the planet just without examining anything. So I think we are lucky that however many decades it took, at least we got to this point, and now we are trying to help other people get to this point. So things are improving. That means these are very good signs, right?
Yes, absolutely. So Manuj, I know that you gave us your website, innergamepurpose.com, and then for the free video series, innerget.com. If somebody wants to, follow you or send you an email, or what's the best way to reach out to you if any of our listeners want to get in contact with you?
Yeah, so you can find me on LinkedIn or Facebook. I'm active on those platforms. If you want to email me, you can email me at manuj@tetranoodle.com.
Okay. Manuj@tetranoodle.com.
Okay.
Okay, we'll make sure that we put the links up for those in the show notes. And Manuj, before we sign off and finish up today, do you have any final tips or bits of wisdom to leave with our listeners?
Bits of wisdom. One thing I will say is, like, life is short, so try to pack as much enjoyment in it as much as possible. Try to, you must have heard when you hear some other speakers talk about raising your vibration and things like that. And for me, it never made sense. What are they talking about? Like, what does that mean? Vibration, raise your vibration. And all it means is bring in more joy in your life. So anything that is stressing you out, that is not sitting well with you, that is your body and mind and soul telling you that you need to do something different. Uh, Neutralize that negative feeling by replacing it with a positive feeling. Find out exactly what you enjoy, who do you enjoy your spending time with, and then take little baby steps to do more and more of it. You don't have to go all out, but just start to enjoy life a little bit, and then that will bring about so many positive changes in your life.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Manuj. It's been an honor to have you with us today.
Thank you so much.
And for all of our listeners, I really hope you enjoyed this episode. I love how Manuj was able to take some really complicated and confusing concepts that kind of create that WTF, does this even mean in your head? And put it into really simple terms and pick it apart in a way that makes it understandable and achievable. Self-awareness and a mindfulness practice really isn't as difficult as it seems. And whether or not you're an entrepreneur, the work is accessible to you. So please look him up. If you're interested in learning more about me, you can find information about me at jenniferwhitaker.com. And you'll also find information about the Yes And podcast at jenniferwhitaker.com/podcast. And it's been a pleasure having you here, and I will see all of you next time on Yes And.
Thank you so much. Thanks.
We have just concluded another episode of the Yes And podcast with Jennifer Whittaker. For additional resources, please visit our website, jenniferwhitaker.com. Leave a review if you enjoyed the show and find it useful. Until next time, continue challenging conventional thinking and keep moving forward.